Hi YouTube, welcome to Vintage Card Collecting Victories. I'm Donnie and I'm glad you're here. This is my first YouTube video, so bear with me as I work out all the kinks. Today I wanted to share how I got started collecting T206 tobacco cards and where I'm at in my attempt to vanquish the monster. Before we get into that though, I'd like to thank several other YouTube channels that I watch regularly. These guys really inspired me to start this channel. Maybe someday I'll get to meet them in person, but for now I'll just say thanks. So thanks to Greg at Midlife Sports Cards, Chris from Missouri, John 3D 80s Kid, Clemente Collector, Mike Baseball Collector, Orlando at Collector's Dream, G's Mikey, Sammy Thunder, Darren at Return to Collecting, Adam at Vintage Sanctuary, Pastor Craig's Cards, and Garrett at Ballpark Memories. Now let's get into how I started collecting T206s. So back when I was about 13 or 14 years old, I found this book at a local bookstore. Classic Baseball Cards, The Golden Years, 1886 to 1956, by Frank Slocum. And the foreword's by Yogi Berra, which I'll read in just a second. But anyway, this was published in 1987, I believe. And inside you can see the art cover there of the Allen and Ginters. A really beautiful artwork. And I got this because of the full-color, full-size photos throughout the book of all the old classic cards. There's T206s, some of the folders, other sets, Cracker Jacks. And I learned so much when I first was getting into vintage cards that this was just an outstanding resource for me. So let me read the foreword here by Yogi Berra. I guess everybody who looks at this book will have a different reaction. Some will see pictures of players that they have heard of as legends. Others will remember the stars of their youth, or even see again the cards they collected and cherished when they were kids. For me, this book brings back a flood of memories. I see again men I played against, and teammates too. I see the faces of young players who, in their later years, were to become friends of mine, many of them very helpful. In many respects, it's like looking through a family album. But what all of us see as we look through this book is a remembrance of men who played the greatest game in the world at the highest possible level. The conditions under which they played, the economics of baseball, the numbers who attended games and who saved baseball cards have all changed. Some things, however, haven't changed, like the thrill of a home run and the kick a player gets out of seeing his likeness on a baseball card. I've always known that I was lucky to have the ability and the desire to play baseball, but this book reminds me how lucky I've been to know and admire so many of the men whose pictures are included here. Those of us who played owe a debt to those who collected. For a century, people have held cards with pictures of ball players, and for a moment allowed those players to be a part of their lives. I think every player in this book is grateful for that. I know I am. Signed, Yogi Berra. So I mentioned this book has full-size color photographs of a lot of the old vintage sets. This is the T3 Turkey Reds, and these are full-size photos of the baseball cards from that set. I'm not sure if they have all the cards in the set or not in here, but it's just really beautiful. And like I said, I learned a whole lot back when I was maybe 13 or 14 years old, when I was first getting into vintage cards. But I want to show you right now the pages they have for the T206 set. So they do call out, the 524 cards in the set. I think there's 494 pictured in this book. So there's a few that are missing. I haven't gone through to check, see which ones are left out. But all the big ones are in here for the most part. I think the Doyle error may be missing is one of the ones that isn't in here. But Wagner, Plank, the Magyar, Hall of Famers, and so forth. And so as a young kid, first starting to get interested in vintage cards, this was just really, really awesome to look at. I'd pour through here and basically memorize what each of the cards looked like, hoping that one day I would be able to find some of these and buy them and have them in my collection. You can see the Cobbs here. All 4 Cobbs are shown. The Demets over here. No, they don't show the backs, but they do talk about the backs a little bit. But the fronts, you know, they have pretty much all the set. And these are all full size, so the actual size of the T206s that you'll find in the wild. McGraw, I have that card there with the glove on hip. Several of the other cards I have in here. But I want to point out this one in particular, this Pfeffer, and that's the one I'll talk to a little bit more in a minute. But that was the very first T206 I ever got. And then the very first Hall of Famer I ever got was Mordecai Brown, back here with the Cubs on chest. So it's the more rare version of Mordecai Brown's cards in this set. But anyway, I just wanted to show that to everyone, show what I used as a resource when I was first starting collecting vintage cards, and especially T206s. And this really inspired me to dive into the monster. Back here we have the minor leaguers, and then we eventually move into the southern leaguers here to round out those in the book. So if you haven't seen this book before, it may be a little bit outdated, but it can probably still be found online. It might be nice to have in your baseball card reference library. So I mentioned my first T206 was Pfeffer, and this particular Pfeffer is Francis Pfeffer, also known as Frank or Big Jeff Pfeffer. There's a couple of other Pfeffers that played Major League Baseball, one back in the 1800s, and I'm not sure the exact relationship to Big Jeff here of that player. And then Big Jeff also had a younger brother named Jeff Pfeffer, who played several years longer, a little bit later than Francis did. And that Jeff Pfeffer amassed a pretty good career with the 38.5 WAR, mostly for the Brooklyn Dodgers. But back to Big Jeff Pfeffer here, or Francis Pfeffer. He had a relatively obscure, short-lived Major League career, mostly as a pitcher, but he also played a little bit of outfield and first base. In 1906, he had the second most strikeouts as well as the second most complete games in the National League, so I thought that was a little interesting about his career. And then also in 1907, he threw a no-hitter against Cincinnati. So again, just a little bit of baseball trivia of this relatively unknown player from the T206 set, but again, because he was the very first card I got from the set, kind of holds a special place in my collection. So here's my first Pfeffer card. It's a sweet cap back with obvious paper loss there. And I actually acquired this from a high school classmate back when I was a junior, senior in high school. He was selling his collection, included some great Mark Grace cards, some other stars and Hall of Famers, and this one tobacco card. And I ended up buying the collection from him for, I don't know, $50 to $75, something like that. He was saving money to buy concert tickets, if I remember right. And because of the back damage on this Pfeffer card, I offered him $5 or $10 as part of that collection buy. So that got me started on the T206 set. And because I quickly became a back collector, I also started looking for different backs for Pfeffer. So on the left you can see all the different backs that are available with the Pfeffer card. And of those I have 5 right now. The sweet cap that's shown there on the screen, but also have a Polar Bear, Piedmont, Factory 25 back, Cycle 460, and the American Beauty 460 back as well. And I'll show those here in a minute, let you guys see them. But anyway, because Pfeffer was the first T206 I ever picked up, I thought it was fitting to go ahead and try to do a back run for him. So someday I'll hopefully complete this. There are quite a few on that list that are going to be probably pretty pricey, so we'll see how far I can get. But there's still several others there that are very doable, very achievable, can be found on eBay fairly readily. So let's take a look at those Pfeffer cards that I have. This box I'll cover in maybe another video. It's a custom box that I bought off of someone from Net54. Really nice quality box, but I keep all my T206s and some other tobacco cards in here. But I will pull out the Pfeffers here and take a look at those here first. So first up, here's the sweet cap that was in the picture just a few minutes ago. That was the very first T206 card I ever bought, and the very first Pfeffer, obviously. There you can see the back with the paper loss. So that's a little unfortunate. Luckily, it wouldn't be too expensive to replace this and get a copy without the back damage on it. But since it's my first, it'll always be in my collection. I don't plan on ever getting rid of it. But one of the things you can notice about the Pfeffer card is the sunset background there, and I'll talk to that in a little bit. But it's just a really beautiful card, kind of classic batting pose there. Just a fantastic looking card. So we'll set that one up here and get it to stay. And the next up, once again, Pfeffer, obviously. I can get the camera to focus here. But this one is the Piedmont back. So again, the 350-460 subjects back with factory 25. So this one obviously is quite a bit better shape. No paper loss in the back. A little bit of corner and edge wear, obviously. It's over 100-year-old card after all. But, you know, very beautiful front with that same yellow and orange sunset sky background. Now the third one here, once again Pfeffer on the front, is the polar bear back. And polar bear back is probably my favorite back overall from all the backs in the T206 set. It's just so different from all the others with the dark blue with the white lettering on there. It just really stands out. So I'm actively seeking more and more polar bear backs for my T206 set. And this is one that I picked up a while back. You can see a crease going down here in the bottom right corner in the back. It's somewhat visible there in the front too. But still just a nice T206 card. Next one up, this is the cycle back. Again, same front, rounded corners there. But there's the cycle 460 back. So cycle is pretty desirable back for the back collectors out there. Obviously not anything like the Linux or Use It or what have you, but certainly in the mid-tier back, cycle is very collectible. A lot of folks try to collect the entire cycle subset, and this is one of those. And then last but not least, last Pfeffer in my collection. Again, some obvious wear for the 100-plus-year-old card, but this one is the American Beauty 460 back. So you can see a crease down here in the bottom right, some other wear. And the American Beauty cards are a little bit narrower than the other two T206s, just because of the packs that they were distributed in. But still, another beautiful pack there. So there you have it. There are the 5 Pfeffer cards that I have in my collection currently. As we go along, as I pick up more backs, I'll be sure to come back on here and share with you guys. Okay, let's move on. Including all the different backs that Pfeffer can come in, there's also some front variations known out in the hobby. And the one that I've heard of most is the Chicago variation, and it's shown here on the right next to the standard Chicago variation on the left, which is most of the cards. So the Chicago variation has a print defect in the G in Chicago, making it look like a C, hence Chicago, the name of the variation. I don't have one of these yet. I've seen them on eBay off and on, depending on the condition and so forth. They could be a little pricey, but one day I hope to pick up one of those just to round out the Pfeffer run that I'm working on. Anyway, I just thought that was kind of interesting, all the different nuances to the T206 set in this particular variation for Pfeffer. Now, Pfeffer is one of the Sunset subset cards in the T206 set. This subset covers a lot of different players, minor leaguers, major leaguers, Southern leaguers, and Hall of Famers. You see the Cobb add-on is probably one of the most famous ones, but there's a lot of other Hall of Famers in this subset. The Duffy, in particular, is very beautiful. The Gandil, not a Hall of Famer, but very well known from the Black Sox scandal. It's a very beautiful card. The Joss pitching one is as well. So if you're looking for a subset to get started on the T206 set, rather than going after the full monster, this might be one to consider, because like I said, the cards are very beautiful. Moving on to my first Hall of Famer, which was Mordecai Brown. I got this card back in high school, probably around 1993, at a card show at a local private school near where I lived in Cordova, Tennessee. Paid somewhere between 100 and 110, I think, for the card. So quite a big chunk of change for back then when I was in high school. Has a common Piedmont 150 back. This particular card also comes in Sweet Cat backs, a Sovereign back, EPDG, and I think a Hindu back as well. So this is one of the more common backs. But nevertheless, it was the first Hall of Famer I got from the T206 set, and it happens to be Mordecai Brown's rarest card within the set. There's 3 different poses for Mordecai Brown, one with a portrait version, and then another one with him having a jersey on with Chicago down the front, and this one with the Cubs across the chest. So again, great card. If you don't know anything about Mordecai Brown, recommend you go and look him up online, read about him. He has a really fascinating background story growing up and how he became a pitcher and a dominant pitcher for the Cubs in the early 1900s. I'm also working on multiple subsets in T206. The Southern Leaguers, for instance, is a very popular subset. I have 11 of those currently, including some of the more popular ones like Foster, Shaughnessy, and Mulaney. There's also 11 cards in the 150 only series, and I have 4 of those, including the Mordecai Brown I showed just a second ago. The subset for the horizontal cards is only 6 cards, so that's a really nice subset to get started on T206. I currently have 3 of those 6 cards. And then from Hall of Famers perspective, I have 14 Hall of Famer cards, including the Carolina Brights back, Jimmy Collins here shown. This card in particular has, I think, 2 other more difficult backs. Comes with the broadleaf and the drum, but the Carolina Brights is the 3rd rarest back for this particular card. And I got that off eBay back when I was in grad school. I had missed out on an auction with another rare back, and I contacted the seller asking for other options that he may have had for sale that he hadn't posted yet. And he gave me a few, and this was really attractive since I've never seen a Carolina Brights card at that time out in the card shows or whatever. So I went ahead and picked this up, and it's currently my rarest and probably most expensive or most valuable T206. Here's a look at all the backs that currently comprise my T206 set. I have about 25% of the set complete so far, 145 cards of the 524. To note also that only about 15 of those are graded. Most of my T206s are ungraded. I just prefer raw or ungraded cards if I can find them. And then as far as backs goes, I have all the backs from the most common Piedmont 350 series back all the way down to the Carolina Brights that I showed with Jimmy Collins just a second ago, minus the American Beauty 350 no frame back. I hope to pick up that American Beauty back this year sometime. They are kind of difficult to find at local card shows, but I'm pretty confident I can find one off Net54. If not, I can resort to eBay if I have to. My overall goal is to have my T206 set at the end be comprised mostly of non-Piedmont, non-sweet cap backs. Right now I have a little over 20% sweet caps, a little under 40% Piedmonts, and all the others total about 40%. But because I'm only 25% of the way there, I have to get a lot more cards, and so if I keep up the pace with getting Polar Bears, Old Mills, Sovereigns, American Beauties, and so forth, I think I can come up with a set at the end that's comprised mostly of those, lesser common off-backs, if you will. And then maybe at some point I may upgrade some of the Piedmonts and sweet caps to those off-backs as well. So to wrap up this video, here's a picture of all the T206s I currently have. I apologize for the glare on the graded cards there in the center. At some point I'll get all these out and show them on camera close up, let y'all see them. But for right now, you can kind of see what the collection looks like right now. There down the bottom row next to the bottom is all the Pfeffer cards I showed earlier in the video. And you can see just above that row of Hall of Famers, including a few Hall of Famers and slabs up there. The Southern Leaguers there at the very top. Right next to those, the 3 horizontal cards I have. And then mixed all throughout the peripheral, there's the rest of the collection, organized by background color more or less as best I could. You can see at the bottom there a lot of the sunset backgrounds that I mentioned earlier too. So very attractive cards. Anyway, it's been great fun working on the set, but I've been working on it for a really long time. Looking forward to making some progress on it and someday completing it. So I appreciate everyone joining me. Please stay tuned. I think my next video is going to be a national preview and game plan video that I should have out this week. May not be exactly what you guys think, so stay tuned for that. And if you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe. Like I said, the real reason I'm doing this is to collect with other vintage baseball card collectors. So I'd appreciate those likes and subscribes, because that helps me connect with those folks. Until next time, thanks again for listening, watching, and I'll see you next time. Thanks.